Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
I'm not seeing my smiling face because it's on the wrong camera. Good evening, everyone. It's May 8th, 2025 at 6:30, and I will call to order Fitchburg's monthly Transportation and Transit Commission meeting. We are lucky this time of year to welcome new members, so we will start with a round of introductions. I think I'll start with Maggie. Just tell us who you are and where you live and your interest in transportation. And then we'll go around that way.
All right, I'm Maggie Hutter. I live in the Seminole Forest neighborhood. And even though I don't have sidewalks to enjoy, I walk everywhere I can. I work for the DNR. So we do have a location that is walkable. That's not my home office, but I can work there sometimes, which is nice. But close enough to most things that I can meet most of my needs walking, which I think is amazing, and interested in connectivity in that.
You're probably the only person to ever say Fitchburg is walkable.
Well, have to be creative and willing.
Yeah.
And Maggie, did I remember from your application that you said you were in a one-car household?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm glad to have that perspective on the TTC, so thank you.
Rick Smith. I've been on this commission since August of last year, so not a full year, but learning lots of things. I live in Chapel Valley, and besides a running group that I organize that runs sometimes in Fitchburg, sometimes in Madison, most of my biking is on the Rails to Trails paths, and otherwise driving the car. I don't tend to ride the bus.
I'm Ariel Levine. I live in an apartment near the Fahey Fields neighborhood. I work at KL Engineering here in Fitchburg. I've been a civil engineer for about 6 years now. I've been at KL for the last almost 3 years. I do a lot of bike path design work, and I also enjoy doing a lot of walking. I have a very active puppy, so I'm out walking every morning and evening, so I enjoy walking around my neighborhood a lot.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
You're going to introduce yourself shortly, so you might as well do it in sequence.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Mike Checkball. I'm not on the commission. I'm from staff for the city of Madison. I work for Metro. I'm the capital projects manager there, so I'll be talking about BRT.
I'm Ross Kaler. I am the transportation engineer for the city of Fitchburg. I've been here a little bit over 2 years now, and before I worked for the city, I worked for a private consulting firm, Baxter & Woodman, doing basically the same job, but I'm more focused on transportation with the city. So I handle basically all of our big road reconstruction projects, like the one on Cyene right now. Traffic signals, Madison runs a lot of those for us, but I kind of field complaints and review plans and stuff like that for new ones going in, and anything related to traffic safety, paths.
And of course, transit.
And transit, yes. transit's probably, I don't know, 20% of my job right now, and a little bit more when we're talking about BRT, but yeah, so.
I'm Gabriella Gerhardt. I am an alder in District 2. I live in the right around Mickey Farms Park, and I've been on council since April 2020. This year, I'm serving as the council president, and so I do a couple extra things, but I've been on this commission with a very short absence. I was on this commission pretty much since I was appointed, so almost 5 years. I was appointed last year as the Plan Commission rep, so I'm on the Plan Commission now, and the Plan Commission always has one rep on TTC, so I was voted that, so there was that short stint in there.
Short straw.
But yeah, so I love this commission. When I first ran, I talked about expanding public transit, so that was part of my original platform, and I'm excited to see what the changes to the network that we've done, and looking forward to seeing it in the future. I do have a car now, but when I first moved to Fitchburg for about the first 4 years I lived here, I did not have a car, so I did exclusively rode by bus and catching rides from friends. So, yeah.
All right, I'm Logan Reichstead. I am the council representative for TTC. I started on TTC as just a civilian member back in August of last year, and then after being elected to city council in April, I was fortunate enough to be able to stay on the commission just in a slightly different role. I've lived in Swan Creek for a little over almost 3 years now, and regular bicyclist, walk around as best I can, and also I ride Metro Transit, take Route 65 usually 4 days a week, so very pleased with that service, and didn't know how great it was until I got a job that works for the university, so it's absolutely fantastic. So that's kind of my interest in transportation and transit related topics.
Elizabeth Ward, I live south of here, and my interest is largely in transit. I'm climate change and access for people who don't drive are kind of my driving interest in transportation, so I'm excited about all the stuff we've done on transit as well.
So, pardon me, Steve Arnold. I was the first person appointed to TTC in 2004. It didn't make quorum until the spring of 2005. So I was appointed as a citizen, but by that time I was on the council, so I became the council representative. Served on it for 10 years until I became mayor. Came back onto the council, onto TTC 2 years ago. When I finally got a friendly mayor who would appoint me to a commission. And so now I'm back, and I've been chair. And I'm very interested in biking. Most of my time I spend working for free for nonprofits. Number one would be Bike Fitchburg. Number two is the Wisconsin Bike Fed, but also All Aboard Wisconsin, which advocates for transit and for intercity rail. So, welcome, and we have for the secretary then the roll call. Dina compiles our minutes from the video, so she has taken the role. And the first order of business after welcoming is officer elections. So each May, each commission, I guess they're 2-year terms. Every other May, we elect officers, and so the first item is the chair. For those who are not aware, the chair's main role is to run the meetings and also to work with the staff support person, Ross, to devise our agenda. And so with that being said, I will open the nominations for chair.
I nominate Steve.
Second.
I accept. I would love to do it some more. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I'll close the nominations. I'll just say under discussion that my vision for the commission would be more of a policy arm, that we have, for example, the Board of Public Works that does the close monitoring of projects and contracts and things like that. And I think that we have done well to move Vision Zero along, although we're not there yet. And with the passage of the city's sustainability plan, acceptance by the council, we now have on our docket implementing a Safe Routes to School program and complete streets. So that's going to be plenty of work for this group for the next years, and in addition to in our ordinances, I believe, or at least in our comp plan, we are going to be working on our transit plan, which perhaps we'll change this when we update the comp plan, but right now we're supposed to update it annually, and we haven't done it for about 5 or 6 years, so we're getting out from under that a little later in the agenda. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor?
Can I say
yes.
something? I just want to thank you. I feel like we have gotten a lot done in the short 2 years or whatever you've been chair. So I'm excited to vote for you, and thank you for pushing us to do a lot of important things.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other accolades? Compliments?
We only have 2 hours.
See, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I guess we have to vote. Well, yes, there's only one candidate. And any opposed? All right. We also need a vice chair. The principal duty there would be to run the meeting if the chair can't be present. And we meet 10 times a year for those of you who are new, trying to get the budget changed to 12 times a year just because we have so much work. But that has not happened yet, maybe this year. Let's see, who was the vice chair? Bill, right?
No, Gabrielle.
Gabrielle. Okay. So.
Surprise! I didn't know. We honestly may have voted for you when you weren't here, but you were the only other one who knew Robert's rules.
With that background, I would just add that it's helpful if you are used to running meetings, and so those who have been on the council for some time certainly qualify. I'll open the nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Gabrielle if she'll take it.
Okay. Do you consent to continue? All right. Are there any other nominations?
Do you need a second?
What? I don't think you need a second for nominations. Any other nominations? All right, I'll close the nominations. All in favor of Gabriella serving for the 2-year term of vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, on to public appearances for non-agenda items. We have no one here from the public besides Mike for an agenda item. So next item will be approval of our agenda. If you've had a chance to review it, are there any suggestions for changes?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Gabriella and Elizabeth. By way of discussion, I would say that we have a big agenda today, so we might have to push something off till next time, but we'll give it a try. All in favor of adopting the agenda as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, next, the minutes. Entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any corrections or noted omissions? Okay, seeing no discussion, all in favor of adopting them as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, those are adopted. Next, we have discussion items, and our guest, Mike, will your presentation, sir.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Go right into it, and then we will discuss our transit plan update, which very relevant. You're welcome to stay for that if you'd like.
Very good. I'm going to try to share my screen.
That's Mike's email address, brt@cityofmadison.com.
I'll get it if you send it there. See something going on, I'll wait for that to be done. Okay.
So sorry. Is this the, what is this?
Transportation and Transit.
Okay, that's not it. Does anybody know where the Fitchburg Progressives are in this building?
Fitchburg what?
Progressives?
They are likely meeting next door in the community center. That's the building down that hallway.
Or the library. Yeah.
Or the library,
Oh,
which
they're
is
the
that building.
library?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're at City Hall.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good night.
That was a non-agenda item.
Yeah, she was late for it.
Okay, sorry, let's get started here. So I'm Mike Czechvala. I'm the Capital Projects Manager at Metro Transit, which is the City of Madison. So North-South Bus Rapid Transit, I was here maybe a year or so ago. We were talking about the locally preferred alternative. So we've now moved on to preliminary design. So that's kind of what this presentation is about. And it's really not about this presentation, but I'm more showing you how to interact with the preliminary design. So that's kind of the goal of the meeting there. If you want to write something down, right now we have our website up there, madisonbrt.com, and also the email address, brt@cityofmadison.com. So you'll see that again if you miss it. So a little bit about North-South Bus Rapid Transit. This is review, but this is an upgrade of our current Route B to Rapid Route B. It is making the same kinds of bus rapid transit enhancements along Route B as we currently have going for Rapid Route A. So Rapid Route A is shown in red, Route B is shown in green. And the project is the parts of Route B that are not currently upgraded to BRT standards. So there's a section through downtown Madison and the Isthmus that Route B and Route A share the same alignment, so those stations and bus lanes are already done. This is adding bus lanes and stations to the parts of Route B that don't have it. This presentation goes over the entire route, but I'm going to kind of focus on Fitchburg and how it relates to the rest of the line. So a little bit about BRT, dedicated lanes with fewer stops, higher quality stations with raised platforms, priority traffic signals. Those are the very basic things that separate BRT from regular bus service. And then because of how we implemented east-west BRT, some of the other BRT components have already been implemented. So for example, the 15-minute service throughout most of the day, that's already there. Faster fare payment is already implemented on Route B. And the all-electric 60-foot buses are already implemented for Route B because we kind of had to do those things. They were part of more system-wide upgrades and so forth. This is a station and bus lane, set of bus lanes on Mineral Point Road. So this is essentially what we're proposing to build along the rest of Route B with the North-South BRT project. So you can see the bus-only lanes help the bus stay on time, beat traffic and so forth. And then the stations have the 13.5-inch platform height so that you can walk directly onto the bus without having to step up. That speeds up boarding. And then you see the other station amenities like the shelter that looks a little bit more like a light rail station, a little bit more like a transit place that you'd expect to have high quality transit service at. Some of the regular amenities that you might expect, real-time arrival signs, some kind of enhanced signage, some fare vending machines where you can purchase your fare ahead of time before you get on the bus. Just some basic transit enhancements that elevate this above your standard bus service. As I mentioned, the buses are already in service. A lot of times these projects these projects have bus purchases as a major component of them. This one will not because the buses are already in place. One thing I wanted to touch on briefly, because it's been on the top of some people's minds, is just an update on federal funding. The project is currently in the FTA's pipeline for small starts funding, and the project is moving forward. There is kind of a process, so there's a pipeline. We don't have a grant yet that comes later once we're ready to build the project. But at this time, we are in that pipeline for federal funding, so that's a good thing. Project status. So here's some of the kind of major milestones and steps. As I mentioned, the locally preferred alternative is complete. That was adopted last year. We are now moving moving on to what we call 30% design or preliminary design. This is a rough layout of the design for the bus lanes and the stations. So the locally preferred alternative, or LPA, kind of lays out a very generic map. It describes the route where the stations will be generally, and then the preliminary design will get a little bit more specific. And so the idea is you lay out where the turn lanes and bus lanes and stations will be, and that way, as our engineers go through into the final stages of design, they're not coming back to say, should the station be on the other side of the intersection? Should the station be at a different intersection entirely? So it's kind of an important step. Once we get towards the more final design, we won't really have as much public input. Really, people just don't really care about those engineering details. They do care about the layout of the bus lanes, stations, turn lanes, all that kind of stuff. So that's an important point where we want to touch base with the public and various other stakeholders. Then we'll move on to final design that fine-tunes the preliminary design, and finally construction. We've had a couple of public involvement meetings already. We'll have a couple more. Our plan here is to distribute our preliminary design in a usable, understandable format. So try to take some of the engineering detail out of it and get really to what we're trying to accomplish, so that people will have an understanding of what the plan will do. We'd like to collect feedback on things like intersection layouts, station configurations, and then we also aim to answer any questions that come back in a meaningful way. Those are our goals for this round of public involvement. Just a quick review of the locally preferred alternative. So this is, as I mentioned, this is just a pretty rough layout of where the route's going to go and kind of where the stations will be. I'm gonna skip this slide because it's the north side of Madison, but the information is there if we want to come back to it. I will spend just a little more time on the south end of Madison. The route generally goes down Fish Hatchery Road. It does a little detour or deviation to Cahill, Maine, Caddis Bend area, and then comes back to Fish Hatch. We are proposing a slight extension south of the line. So the current terminal is right around Cahill, Maine, Caddis Bend. We are proposing to push it about a half mile south to a new terminal at McKee and Treverton Pike, just west of Fish Hatchery. That extension, I think, will bring the service to quite a few more people that live in that part of the city of Fitchburg. It will also give us a nice convenient place where we can build an en-route charger and have a nice terminal for the end of the line so we can charge the electric buses. So kind of dual mode. A couple changes that we are proposing to the locally preferred alternative are a slight change in the limits of Park Street reconstruction. We're pulling back on the limits of reconstruction in southern Madison in order to bring the project within budget, but we're also working to see if we can extend that again. We'd like to reconstruct all the way from the Fish Hatchery and Park Street intersection down to Badger Road. We currently don't have that funded, but we'd like to add that back in. We we're converting a few stations from side running to center running, and then some minor updates to bus lane layouts. And all of these are based on some changes that have come through the preliminary design process. So as we were looking in more detail, we decided, for example, this station would be better off center running as opposed to side running. And so we'd like to keep the locally preferred alternative up to date so that what we build is ultimately consistent with what was approved.
What is reconstruction limits? I'm sorry, I guess
Park Street in Madison is going to be reconstructed. We are folding that reconstruction into the project so we can do it all at once. Okay. We would like to reconstruct from the Fish Hatch Park intersection all the way down to Badger Road. We don't have the funding to do that right now, so we've pulled it up. So we're only reconstructing about half.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And the rest of the stations and bus lanes will be fit into the existing roadway.
And will that roadway be resurfaced or just saved for future reconstruction?
basically say for future reconstruction, that section is concrete. It's had some joint repair done to it, so it's in sort of decent condition right now, but our engineers tell us that those repairs will not last as long as real pavement reconstruction. So we anticipate that once a project is done, it'll need real pavement replacement within about 5 to 10 years. And so our goal would be to not come back shortly after and redo it, but just redo it all at once.
Yeah, concrete lasts a little bit longer, but when it fails catastrophically. So we're seeing that here on Fish Hatchery Road around the Lacey and East Sherrill.
So that's what we're working on. But right now the like I said, the reconstruction limits just kind of need to fit the budget. But we're working with WSDOT to see if we can extend that again. Does that answer your question, Gabriella?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sorry, the way it was worded just, yeah.
So as we put together the preliminary design, there's a lot of competing interests, as there usually are on these major projects. So our goal, of course, is to build the best BRT project that we can, improve transit reliability and travel times, a comfortable experience and all that kind of thing, but there are other needs and desires in the corridor. We'd like to preserve as many trees as possible. Businesses are all along the corridor from Fitchburg all the way up into North Madison, and so we like to accommodate their needs to the extent that we can. Bicyclists and pedestrian access and safety is very important. WSDOT and Dane County also have jurisdiction over some of this route, so we're working with them to make sure their needs are met. And then, of course, with everything, we do have a budget, and we need to make all of this fit within the budget. So being pulled in lots of different ways, and we'll kind of show you what we did, and we hope that we've balanced these things correctly, but if we haven't, I hope somebody will let us know. So the 30% design boards, or the preliminary design boards, are 43 sheets that basically look like this. So these are some kind of engineering drawings that lay out, as I mentioned, the bus lanes, the turn lanes. I've used this as an example because you can see the notes. Again, we've tried to kind of have the signal come through the noise on these so that people can understand what we're doing. And this is Fish Hatchery at High Ridge Trail. So this is one of the proposed station locations. You can see the station shown on the left side of the drawing, which is the south side of High Ridge Trail. At this particular location, we're proposing eliminating the northbound left turn from Fish Hatchery to High Ridge. So we've identified that in a way that you can kind of see it there. We are proposing a new traffic signal at this location, so we've identified that, and we're rearranging the bus lanes on Fish Hatchery from the right side to the left side, so we have some notes talking about that. And so, there are 43 sheets. This is just kind of an example, but we're hoping that people will use their own time to go through these and look at them. They're divided into 3 groups: Fitchburg, South Madison, and North Madison. And you can download and view these at madisonbrt.com. I'll go into that a little bit more in a little bit to kind of demonstrate, but this is the heart of what we're trying to do, is get these boards out there so that people can take a look through them and see if they like what we're proposing.
Mike?
Yep.
This group reviewed 30% designs maybe half a year ago. Are these boards updated from that, or are they the same as those we saw previously?
These should be brand new.
So they
haven't released.
So we should look at them again, in other words, even though they're still marked 30%.
Yeah, I don't think these should be fresh.
I think what we got was maybe closer to 10% plans, like very
That's
preliminary.
possible.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
I remember what you remember, though, that it was called 30%.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, 30% is by far the longest stage of a plan set's development.
We might have distributed something earlier, but this is the first time we're really pushing it out to the public.
Yeah. So I think that we saw it way before the public because you wanted our input, but
perhaps.
Okay.
That's possible.
So bottom line is, this group needs to look at these again.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yes, yes. I think these. Yeah, I think that was an earlier version of the preliminary design. Yeah, you should take a look at these again. This is new. So just some key topics in the design, things that we know will come up, things that we're interested to hear about. The reconstruction of Park Street, I guess this is in Madison, but we know that there's a lot to that reconstruction. It goes a little bit above and beyond BRT, but really is all of the ins and outs of a full-on arterial street reconstruction. 4 new traffic signals along the corridor, one of which is on Fitchburg. I just mentioned that's Fish Hatch and High Ridge. We have some left turn removals. Most of those are on Park Street, but one of them is at Fish Hatchery and High Ridge. Bike facility upgrades, that's mainly along Park Street, but we do have some stuff kind of scattered along the corridor. And then bus stop changes. BRT has a wider stop spacing than local service, and so some of the bus stops along the corridor will close. And the LPA process has laid out where the stations should be, but as we get into the preliminary design, we're still interested in making sure that the stations end up in the right location. Left turn restrictions, again, main one in Fitchburg is just northbound Fish Hatchery at High Ridge, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail about that because it's pretty straightforward. Pedestrian safety is a huge part of the project. We're installing traffic signals at most of the stations. That's the main reason for the 4 new traffic signals. We do have some stations that will not be at traffic signals, but those are predominantly at low volume streets, such as the Cahill, Main, Caddis Bend station, where traffic signal would never be warranted and really is unnecessary. Audible pedestrian signals at any of the signals at stations that we touch with the project. High visibility crosswalks, detectable warning fields, and all stations will be 100% accessible. Some changes to parks and potential effects to historic properties. This is something that we are required to investigate for federally funded projects. More information about this is online if you need it. Short answer is very few, if any, impacts to parks or historic properties. How to provide feedback. This is what we'd like. So you can view these preliminary design plans at madisonbrt.com. We have a survey on there, so the survey is a good way for us to just collect feedback. It's easier than sending an email and that kind of thing, but also we have, our survey will guide you through the 43 boards, so you can kind of go through each of the 43 and skip to the ones you want and put in specific comments about each plan sheet. So that would be useful if you have the time to do that. If you want to just give us your generic feedbacks, you can do that in really whichever way is as easiest for you. You can also just email us, brt@cityofmadison.com, or join us at one of the upcoming in-person meetings, which I will show now. The one at Fitchburg will be here at Fitchburg City Hall. It will be an open house format from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. We're doing an open house format, and the reason is we'll have these 43 boards laid out, and that'll be easier for people to just meander through and look at them and ask us questions about the project.
And that'll be down in the council chambers, just down the hall from here.
Quick project schedule. We'll be doing planning, environmental review, and design for the next year or two here, and then construction 27 to 28 if the schedule holds. 2028 hopefully open to service. That is somewhat optimistic, but it's achievable, and we're going to try to stick to it if we can. So that's my presentation. I'll happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I'll start. Mike, with respect to the Fitchburg Public Information Meeting, I can think of 3 reasons that our commissioners might like to attend. One of them would be to learn new things, but if we review the boards and go through the survey, we will probably not learn new things unless we ask questions to go in more depth. To show support for the BRT and to hear what the public has to say. In an open house format, that's a little hard instead of a big forum where one person speaks at the same time. Would you advise all of us to come to that PIM?
Yeah, I think all of the reasons that you stated are accurate. I would encourage anybody to come.
Other questions for Mike?
How closely tied is the LPA to the existing grant?
The locally preferred alternative is fairly tightly tied to the grant as it exists. So we are recommended for funding. That puts us in the pipeline. That recommendation is tied to the locally preferred alternative. So if we were to reopen the locally preferred alternative, it would kind of reopen everything.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have, Mike, a good idea of what happens if that federal funding were to vanish? Trying to be not a pessimist, but in the off chance it does, looking at the 27-28 construction window, is that something we push back maybe 2 years or 5 years?
Yeah, so this is a question that we've been getting a lot. I'm trying to come up with a good way to answer it, but basically, we right now we're in the pipeline for federal funding. If we do not have federal funding, we will react to that. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I'm reluctant to go down various speculation paths of what could happen under various scenarios. There's not just the federal funding issue. There's multiple different things that could spring up between cost increases and various things that could happen. So all I can really say is right now we're in the pipeline, and if that were to change, we'll deal with whatever news that would be.
And I would say that the way that the city of Madison deals with a funding shortfall of any kind, and the way that the city of Fitchburg deals with the funding shortfall, it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same method for dealing with it. Like if the project is delayed, then obviously the whole project should probably be constructed at the same time in my mind. But various funding sources could be utilized between the two different cities.
Would your advice be to not waste cycles on contingency planning?
Yeah, again, you could speculate multiple different permutations of what could happen. We are trying not to do that because we've been talking with our colleagues at the Federal Transit Administration. They've advised us to keep going.
Okay. Can I ask you a question about the route in Fitchburg, and can you bring up?
Yeah. Let me bring it up again.
Fitchburg part of the route.
So I'm going to go back to this LPA slide if you don't mind.
So this is the LPA that we included in the grant application.
Correct, yeah.
And if we look at the southernmost section, I guess we modified it to come past the intersection with McKee and turn around as you described there on Triberton. Is it really necessary, given that that's almost the southern terminus, for it to go back up Cahill Main in its northbound direction rather than staying on Fish Hatchery?
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at.
Directions to South Fish Hatchery.
Okay, I don't need any directions right now.
Yeah, I think if I recall, I kind of recall a conversation that we might have had last time on this. And so what's happened is, I think what you're saying is have the bus go do the deviation in one direction, but not the other.
Yeah.
In that, if it did in the southbound direction, for example, you could get on, go around the loop, and come back up.
Yeah.
So the reason that we aren't recommending that is because if the bus will go down to the end of the line and it won't immediately loop around and come back. It will sit there for 15, 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so that would make it essentially, people wouldn't want to do that. we were trying to avoid that kind of thing. This is actually what happens currently on the north side of the line. So the way it works right now is there's a similar loop, it's actually a little bit bigger, and the bus waits at that Troy Northport station, essentially. And so if you are going, for example, home in the evening, you have to sit through a layover. Sometimes you can kind of catch the next bus that's ahead of the bus, but it's very difficult for people to continue on because of that substantial, unpredictable delay where the bus is waiting at the end of the line. On the north side, we're solving this in a similar way that we're treating the south end, is that we're pushing it as far as we can towards the end of the loop.
Pushing the time stop.
Yes, the end of the line. This one's even harder because there are 2 stops on the loop. But the loop at the south end is so small, there's only 1 stop on the loop. So it's a little bit better. But again, I think if we didn't do the deviation in both directions,
you'd have a much bigger loop.
Yes, essentially it would create the same problems that are on the north end of the line.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll just go back to contingency planning for a second. You probably already thought of this, but if federal funding were to somehow collapse, it would seem like the one thing that we would really need to do would be to build that station with the charger and the driver restrooms at the south end for operational purposes, to keep the buses charged en route instead of sending them to the garage. I know you're building the north charging station early for that reason. So
correct, yes.
I have another question. You've heard this.
Sorry, are you saying that because a non-BRT bus would go to that location?
I'm saying that because they're running electric buses here.
Understood, but
and
not at that spot right there today.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to build a charging station at Hatchery Hill if you're going to later have one at. So I would say that
hand in hand with a route change is what Steve was saying.
Okay, that was what I was trying to
you would extend the route. Even if you couldn't make the whole south of the line BRT, you would extend the route and build that charging station so you'd have a charging station at each end of the route. Our drivers right now are very experienced at running the electric buses on a route that has both conventional and BRT style stops. And so that would give you that charging advantage and give our residents the line extension advantage without having to build all the stations.
Because we need charging there?
It's to the advantage operationally. Right now, it's my understanding that they have to swap buses back to the garage because in the east, on the A line, there's charging stations at each end, but there's not in the B line. And so if you run the electric buses for some number of laps, then they need to go back to the garage to charge.
Okay.
I suppose another thing would be to swap them to A buses and send them to one of those charging stations, but that would be very confusing to riders. And one of the goals is simplicity. This is a question you've heard before, so I'm just going to tee it up again, just keep it on your menu. If we lose our side running bike and bus shared lanes, to have good bike access in both directions, and to allow for people to use on-street facilities in the areas where there are so many commercial driveways that side paths are really arguably, I would say, clearly less safe than on-street facilities. You could be permissive about, and I think you are in the A line, about bikes using the red lanes, but I think that if you do not mark them as bike lanes, then we run the risk of having drivers who already shake their fists at bicyclists, shaking their fists at bicyclists for riding in the bus lanes. And so I really want you to consider marking those center running lanes bike lanes. So.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. We haven't really explored that at this stage of the design, but.
Well, you need it on the A route too, because out on Mineral Point, for example, you're building a side path on one line, and that's a all ages and abilities, low stress route. But for people who want to avoid the driveways and are looking for express bike service, they want to be on the on-street facilities, and they can't get to one side of Mineral Point Road. They have to walk their bikes, or they have to cross mid-block, or whatever it is, or ride on the sidewalk. So this is the question. You know, if you build 10-foot multi-use paths on both sides of the street, problem solved, but we're not doing that. Okay, any other questions for Mike? Gabriella?
I know, this is probably not the best question for you since you're the capital projects manager, but I don't know if you're aware that we are having discussions about potentially extending that Route B down to the Treverton and McKee stop now or soon, so that we can have that extension and potentially have the 65 come up to that spot as well, creating a transfer point within Fitchburg. I assume that, do you have any comments on that, or is there any discussion about that? And is that desirable from your perspective? Because
yeah, I think it's desirable. I think that could happen at any time. It would take some planning and work on our end. I'm vaguely familiar that that's going on, but you know, like you said, I'm not front and center on that. But from the project's perspective, that could happen at any time. Okay. We would need to have enough buses. I think it requires an extra Route B bus to do that, and the charging that we're installing on the north end of the line would help free up additional buses for that. So it just give us some extra operational flexibility in general. But yeah, there's really nothing fundamentally tied to this project that says that extension couldn't happen earlier.
when is that charging station set to be complete?
Next summer, 2026 summer.
When the City of Madison builds a charging station for City of Madison buses, then presumably City of Madison pays for the electricity. When Fitchburg builds a charging station for the buses, how is the payment for the electricity accounted for?
So I can just tell you that in Sun Prairie, we pay the electric bill for the, so we have an electric bus charger in Sun Prairie.
Yeah.
We pay that bill just like we pay other bills. And that is folded into the cost of the service, just like we pay for the diesel fuel, whether it's burned in Madison or it's burned in Fitchburg or wherever.
Bundled into our route hour charge.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Other questions? Any parting thoughts you want to leave with us?
I think I've said them all.
All right, thank you. We appreciate the visit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
All right, transit plan update. Staff report on this, I guess?
Yeah. So, basically just to kick it off, and I'll share my screen in a second here. This month, the only changes I've got to this document involve the routes themselves. So none of the text or goals of the report. A lot of these I don't have dollar amounts on right now. I have dollar amounts for some of them from previous conversations. But if these are things that TTC is in agreement on, then I'll approach Metro to get better dollar amounts for them. So now share my screen and we can kind of walk through these 5 or 6 things. So a second here.
It's another disadvantage of sitting at the head of the table.
So I'll just walk through these in the order I have them in the this report, and we'll talk about them kind of individually. So the first one is, Gabriella, as you just mentioned, the Route B extension. So this would extend Route B to McKee Road and change the existing turnaround loop that's currently in the Caddis Bend, Cahill, Maine area, Hatchery Hill. And the bus would divert on that route just like it does in the BRT route, and then loop around the same loop that the BRT will for using Brendan, Triverton Pike, and then on McKee. So for all of these, I've got on the left the existing route, and then on the right the proposed route. And if you have any changes you would like to see to the route, descriptions, whatever, let me know. So Route B extension.
Yeah, I marked this on a later diagram, but it applies here too. On your after diagram on the right, it would be good if you put loop arrows where the loop is one way. So in this case, it's a clockwise loop at the end of the line.
Mm-hmm.
And the existing green lines have those arrows, or half arrows.
Yep, I can look at that for the more final version of this, yeah.
Yeah, I was very confused about the one on the top of the next page, but I think I finally figured it out.
So is there any need to put this into the CIP?
So this would not be a capital change. These are operational changes. So
Really just the sign would be all that would be required from a capital standpoint?
like the bus stop sign?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that those don't come to the dollar value that the CIP requires. We usually set a $10,000 minimum for CIP projects.
Just operational expenses.
Is there one additional stop?
This would involve one additional stop, just like the BRT route.
Just like the BRT route.
This is just the BRT route before we actually get the BRT.
Yeah. So from time to time at Cahill, Maine, I see two buses nose to tail sitting there. Like, do we swap buses, or what happens when there's two buses both on the same route?
So they run every 15 minutes.
Yes.
And they have roughly 15 minutes at the end of the line before where the driver takes a break and gets back on schedule.
Okay.
So sometimes the second one arrives before the first one has left.
Oh, okay.
So one arrives, they're sitting there, 15 minutes later, another one pulls up, and then the first one pulls away. So sometimes you see two there at once.
Okay. So Route B is 15 minutes right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So in this case, that stopover condition would likely just move to Triverton Pike instead of Hatchery Hill. But that's kind of an operational thing that honestly isn't super relevant for the transit plan.
Well, I was just curious in terms of my question earlier about going straight up back up Fish Hatchery Road on the north bound direction rather than going back, making a left turn back onto Cahill and then having to make another left turn back onto Fish Hatchery. But just going north at that point. But that's why I was trying to understand how long buses sit around at the terminus.
Ross, if we were to do this, would we need to remove that island, and would that meet the capital threshold?
We would look at that. We might be able to, without the BRT stop and charger, just stop a little bit further south on Triverton Pike, but it might require removing that island. I doubt that would get to the CIP level.
Very good.
I don't think you'd have to.
Yeah, that's kind of so this, so this is one of the ones where I would approach Metro for cost information after this meeting, basically. So.
Do you want us to have motions and vote on these?
I don't think we need
not
to be that formal, unless does anyone have issues with this extension?
Do you want us to suggest the year, or is that something you're gonna talk to them about?
If you have suggestions for the year, that's great.
I would say that our council representative should ask for it in the budget ASAP.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and staff should submit it. Now, we know that the referendum failed and we don't have that money. There is the wheel tax money that we will be discussing later in the year. And it's gotta go to transportation purposes. But we shall see.
Yeah, I was gonna.
I'd love it in 26.
Yeah,
I was gonna say.
if that's good timing, if the electric charging station at the other end is being finished in that summertime.
Potentially, yeah.
If that, I mean, it seems like it would have to align with
Yeah.
that project, otherwise it wouldn't function, because we'd have to buy a new bus just for.
And Mike, you could say something about how Metro changes routes. The route changes generally occur just a couple times a year,
They
right?
tend to occur 4 times a year that coincide with when our drivers get to pick the work that they do, essentially quarterly. So one of those times is in August and another time is in December. The other 2 times being March and May.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think this is an absolute no-brainer. If the only expense is another bus driver and then moving a sign or adding a sign, I think in terms of ROI, you're getting a lot more people and it's easier to park there with all the parking at that kind of strip mall by Walgreens, and it's not a ton of cost. So I'd like to see it say 2025.
2025/26,
So now are we encouraging this to be a park and ride location as opposed to just a route extension? Because I heard you say that
there's plenty of street parking
It's
around there.
insane amount of parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could use McKee Farms Park if you'd like.
I mean, there's so many empty parking lots in that commercial area, there's like no one uses.
Well, we can't really recommend private property parking.
To use instead of
Right.
private parking.
Oh, no. But I mean, like, if you ever wanted to do a park and ride, like if the city wanted to invest in just purchasing some of that property because it's not being used at the level, at the amount that's there, so.
Okay, so let's say August 2025.
Funding dependent.
Yeah.
So the vehicle registration fee funding does not start, we don't start collecting until August.
Yep, so August 2025.
I have I don't know, I mean, I have a hard time believing that the revenue stream would be equivalent to the I don't know.
We could bond to cover the gap. Kidding.
Yeah.
All right, so we set to go on to Rapid Route B.
Yep, so moving on to Rapid Route B, this is exactly what Mike was just talking about. Same route changes that we just talked about above. And correct me if there's been any update to this, but this would not be any major change in operational costs. For Rapid Route B.
To convert
current.
regular Route B to
Yeah.
Rapid Route B?
Correct.
No, just to
The extension would have some.
the extension would have some, starting to serve the stations, essentially wouldn't. There may be some maintenance costs that Fitchburg would typically kind of do on their own as Fitchburg currently maintains its own bus stops. But other than that, operating costs, there's really no change.
So, yeah, comments on this? I think we can probably move pretty quickly.
Yes, please.
All right.
Yeah, do it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Especially if we're doing the previous one. Oh, sorry. No, I'm confused here.
So
This is Rapid Route B. Never mind.
So Route 65 extension.
This is the one.
So this is an extension from the Civic Campus where Route 65 currently loops, basically up to the proposed extension of Route B. So this bus would hit a similar but a little bit different loop and stop at that same stop so that it would function as a little bit of a transfer point where you could come from areas in the east of the city and go north on Fish Hatchery Road. So what I've got here shows it going up Mickelson Parkway. So the bus would.
You back up, Ross?
Yeah.
So if you're coming down west on East Sherrill Parkway, what does it do when it gets to Fish Hatchery Road, South Fish Hatchery Road?
So this is proposing that the bus would turn right north on Fish Hatchery Road and then turn left on Mickelson Parkway and make its way up to the Trifferton Pike stop.
And that would be the time stop?
Correct.
Okay.
And then it would take a right on McKee, right on Fish Hatchery Road to the south, to go back south, and then go back out to the east.
Would the loop to Lacey Road be deleted?
That's what I have here. If you guys have comments on that, feel free to share.
So when I worked on campus, the 48 came all the way to Nobel Drive, and I used that bus, and I think that it would be good, just like the deviation we're going to talk about in a second, if we could serve down to Lacey. So I was a little confused as to how that would be, but it's quite clear now that if we delete that loop, then it's very simple. I did want the clockwise arrow on the loop. But the question then would be, if you were to serve the stops by Gordon Flesh and the library, which we do today, we serve them only in the one-way direction because the library stop is the timed stop. So now we've got through traffic, and so I think that it's the right thing to do to serve East Sherrill Parkway rather than what now is rather a remnant rural neighborhood along Lacey Road. But I would like to see it, I would like to see the westbound on East Sherrill turn up Research Park, that's uphill, turn left onto Research Park, come down to Lacey, turn right on Fish Hatchery, and do the, I'll call it the Walgreens loop, and then come back all the way to Lacey. And so the stops that are currently on East Sherrill Parkway by the children's dentist would be moved to Fish Hatchery Road. So I would delete this segment rather than this part.
And it would go both directions.
It would go both directions for all the reasons we talk about. Because if I'm down at, say, Oasis Cafe, and I want to go west, for example, to catch the B, it's not going to come down there maybe, and I have to walk up to East Sherrill Parkway, or going the other way, same difference.
I'll concur with Steve on this. I think if we're trying to serve the senior center, which is a population we've specifically heard is right now struggling for transit options, I wouldn't want somebody with limited or lesser mobility having to walk up that Research Drive hill, going into the back way through City Hall parking lot in the winter, uphill both ways, et cetera. But in all seriousness, I think that has been one of the goals that I've heard from the senior center and from others, that if we want to serve it, I think I would rather see it just go down Lacey, and it's a little bit more circuitous, or go down to Lacey. But I think we would be creating enough of a barrier that we wouldn't get the full impact of adding that extra small deviation.
Okay. Another advantage is that it would push paratransit eligibility farther south.
So that would not quite be the case with just this. That'll be in the next bullet, we'll get to that.
Yes,
The
yes.
the paratransit part.
The two of them together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would like feedback on, if there is any, is the diversion on Mickelson Parkway. Any thoughts on that diversion versus just turning on Brendan like the BRT route does, Steve?
Yeah, I was wondering, we have talked about the concern that there are no sources or sinks of passengers along Fish Hatchery Road between Brendan and Mickelson Parkway. And I am wondering if, let's say we're going clockwise, after we turn from McKee onto South Fish Hatchery, why not turn right again on Brendan and then go both ways on Mickelson Parkway?
That would be a pretty tough,
That seems tough,
yeah, turn.
Which one?
The right from Fish Hatch onto, the southbound right from Fish Hatch onto Brendan, I think is what we're talking about.
We're talking about design vehicle and corner radii type.
I think more traffic based. I don't want to put words in your guys' mouths, but that's at least my experience with that turn.
Yeah.
Well, that was my observation before, that particular intersection with Summit Credit Union and the people going to Walgreens is already a busy spot, and you're already putting traffic, well, they'll eventually put traffic there with BRT.
Yeah.
With no change to the street design. And so you're just gonna do it earlier, you're still putting traffic on that same little stretch of road that isn't really even great for cars, let alone buses.
There's no, in this scenario, pause there, right? So
There's
there's
no
no
stop.
reason somebody couldn't, it's not like the other loops we talked about where they'd have to wait with the driver for 25 minutes. There's no reason they couldn't, people on Mickelson couldn't get on and just go around the loop a little bit.
Well, the time stop would still be here.
Oh, it still would be for the
And I mean,
605.
that's also kind of like an operational thing that we could kind of look at and massage. So it's.
Wait, so there's no stop on Mickelson before the Tiverton? There would be no stop on that?
You mean the whole stretch of it?
Is that what someone was saying?
Well, there certainly would be
No, I
a
think
stop. There's a stop today along, there's previously a stop down here. Now,
Yeah.
if you had a stop here, you would probably want one down to the south someplace.
That is kind of my, thought on
Because it would make it a lot more accessible
Yeah.
to Tower Hill neighborhood.
Exactly.
It's pretty easy to walk there
Mhm.
through the park.
Yeah, my kind of thought is like one stop probably on like the southern part of Mickelson Parkway and then the stop on Tiverton Pike, basically. But again, that's
Well, I think
that's a pretty like, I know stop locations are very important, but for the transit plan, that's a pretty niche detail.
I think it does make sense for it to come back down Fish Hatchery and not go back onto Mickelson. I don't know that the benefit of that is enough to justify whatever delays would be caused by that. I think you'd be better off spending, I think the deviation down to Lacey is something that should be strong.
And there would be no stops on Fish Hatchery north of Mickelson, right? We would restore that stop in front of Walgreens, right?
But on the, yes, we could, but there's that we could.
Yeah, because this is a conventional bus and stops are more frequent and the infrastructure's already there. We already have a turn bay for the bus to pull in.
And it would only stop if people wanted to. So.
There's also, there's a path I'm looking, goes right from McKee Farms Park, across Mickelson Parkway and ends at Fish Hatch, between Seminole Woods and the Mickelson Woods there. So we could have, it wouldn't actually hit, it wouldn't be on Mickelson, but folks on Mickelson could walk up that path to Fish Hatch. And if we were to put a stop there, that would be another way to serve it without physically being on Mickelson. It'd be another block. If we were to
There's no
look at-
crosswalk though to the other side.
But
you're
even
talking
if
about
we're,
the way back.
yeah, if it was coming from the south, even if it was here,
Oh, stop
And then-
there on the
So what that stop would be used for is people that miss the bus. And so they have to run up the hill to Fish Hatchery to catch it on the way back south.
Exactly.
Except that it is a timed stop. So that means that somebody on that makes sense, that somebody on Mickelson could walk up that path because they know that the bus is going to leave at a particular time, up to 15, or in that route, 30 minutes after it went by their house, the front of their house. So that could make sense.
So you're going to put a stop on Fish Hatchery southbound, south of Brendan?
By that path, that's
that little park.
That's what
area.
Logan is giving the possibility of.
Just south of Seminole Woods Apartments, between there and the Mickelson Woods.
Yeah.
And again, we're not
like
this
we're in the
plan
weeds.
is not
We're
for
in the
stop
weeds.
locations.
That won't affect the route hour cost.
Yeah.
I think overall we're okay, except for we like the potential deviation to Lacey.
Yeah.
I think that's summarizing
Yep.
the discussion.
Yep.
And we can make this 26, get the BRT going this August, or the B extension going this August.
Because they both have to happen together otherwise.
Yeah, I have a couple of typos to talk about. On the Route B extension,
Steve, I'm gonna cut you off unless they're like really substantive typos.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have a few more drafts of this, so
Okay.
I'll be going through it a few more
sure,
times.
I'll give you the page.
Big picture.
Yeah. So for moving on to Route 65 reroute, this is something that Logan sent an email on. So Logan, I'll describe it and you can correct me if I'm incorrect about anything. So basically this would continue, basically the 65 would go from where it does now on Lacey. It would continue south on Lacey through the Lacey and East Sherrill roundabout. It would turn right at the Lacey and Haight Farm roundabout to go west on Lacey still, because that road name is weird. Then it would turn north on Sain Road and then west on East Sherrill Parkway, and the reverse of that in the other direction, because this isn't a loop, this would just be a route diversion. So
There's a lot of population on that route.
Yes, yep, and
And
that's
a lot of apartments on that.
And that's why I proposed it. I'll get up and I'll take my turn at the front of the room here, narrate so our friends at FACTv can get ready. So right now there's one stop here at Mill Oaks, which cuts through here. But right now, this just south of Haight Farm and Lacey, this is Hartung Fields, which is going to have 450-ish units plus some potential employment. We have Uptown Hills, which is a workforce townhome development proposed on Haight Farm right here. We will also have, I believe it's the Aurora Apartments here, which is a couple hundred units. Addison. I always get those mixed up. It's Aurora Avenue, Addison Apartments. A couple hundred units here. Just over this way, we have a 55 plus condo development. So it would be certainly a circuitous deviation, but we'd have, I believe I did the math, and it was something like 800 more units. So at least 1,000 people.
Well, and just south of there is the Hartung Fields development, which is getting built out.
Yeah, and you know, we also have the new UW Health Clinic coming in here. So I would expect there to be more demand. So I'll sit back down here, but one of the reasons I had also proposed this was, and I don't think this is an immediate, I think it would be great to kind of phase it with the Hartung development and the Uptown Hills development. So maybe this is like 2 or 3 years out, so that as this neighborhood really gets fully built out, this option is there for folks as they start to move in, so that they have it from the get-go. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ross. My understanding is that it's better to have the service available when people really get the neighborhood established, so that they come in knowing this is an option and make their plans accordingly, rather than get used to driving and then a year later the bus service comes in and like, oh, I'm already used to driving to work. You don't have it kind of time it out with some of those other developments. And I also forgot to mention the Limerick is at that corner of Lacey and Lacey, which
is a low income.
Yes, yep, it's senior and some lower income housing as well, another apartment.
Avanti's new building is getting ready to open right here, and there are huge buildings all the way down here. And so these people, instead of having to walk all the way up to East Sherrill, will have another closer option.
And those who currently take the No Oaks stop would only then have to walk 1 block west or east, depending on which is easier for them. So they would still have service. It would not be, I want to check my privilege here as an able-bodied, adult, but it would be less disruptive than other changes could be, and still generally similar service.
The other thing is, so the people that live in the Limerick townhomes, is there actually like a sidewalk all the way to get them to the 65? Or I don't know, I'm just looking at the Google Maps street view, and it looks like the sidewalk isn't complete on either side.
It is not.
So right now, they technically are close to a bus stop, but they do not have safe pedestrian access.
There's a multi-use path on the other side of the street.
Oh, is there?
They'd have to cross.
They have to cross.
Yep, it's on the Hartung side, so the south and then the east of Lacey.
So there's some access.
But directly from on that side of the street, it dead ends. It basically only is on Limerick's property and then to the roundabout.
So I'm a bit lost as to where you'd be proposing additional bus stops.
Sure.
But I observe that it's not described in your document, so are you?
No, so the transit plan does not have the bus stops.
Okay,
yeah.
So moving along.
Yeah.
But there would be a stop at the bottom of it.
Some bus stop somewhere along.
Someplace down there.
I'll assure you, Rick, I would not be proposing the bus just drive on a different road.
Okay.
I promise
There
that.
will be good
Trust
stuff.
Okay, so I just kind of jotted down a proposed year of 2028 for this, just to kind of coincide with some of that development. And I think if a lot of that development gets pushed, we could look at pushing this, something like that.
Well, there's already, the Addison is already there. I would not wait.
I mean, Hartung Fields is also getting built out right now. The more people
that's
that,
opening this year.
The more people that move in, knowing that bus service is very easy to get to.
Yeah, first of the 3 Hartung apartments, the Juniper opens, I want to say in June, or is starting to around that time. And then the next one is going to start construction, last I heard, is hoping to still break ground this year, and that'll be kind of a twin building immediately to the south. So that's the second of the 3 big apartments in that development.
Although I'm really eager to obviously have the conversation with Metro about what it would cost, because a deviation, if it requires an extra bus on the route, could be significantly more expensive than just like both of those deviations could change, including onto Mickelson. That could potentially be a huge financial impact versus picking and choosing what would be the most impactful. Might be something we'd have to look at.
Yep. So this is, again, we're not approving this plan tonight or any of these. If Metro comes back and says this change would be $500,000, I would recommend not doing it.
To be clear, we don't pay for extra buses. We would pay for extra route hours.
Yes. Okay. And then also, as far as the proposed years for all of these things, I just want to throw out there, this is a 5-year planning document, and everything that we've proposed so far we have in 2026. Which is great.
But we're also supposed to update it every year.
Wish list.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so seems like broad approval for that as well.
Our expansion.
Yep, so Route 65, and I'll just kind of bundle these together. Route 65 and Route 75, our expansion. So right now, Route 65 and Route 75 are both in Fitchburg, for the 75 particularly, are both commuter hour routes. So that means they only run at peak times, which in general are 6 to 9 a.m. and then 3:30 to 6:30 or 7. That just kind of depends on the stops on the route and how long the route is.
And weekdays?
And weekdays only. So both of these expansions, these hour expansions, would propose that both routes operate on weekdays and weekends from 5:30 a.m. to maybe 12 a.m. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that in a second. Route 65 obviously goes into Madison, so we would probably be smart to sync up any changes in the 65 with stuff that Madison is doing within their city. Yeah, you know, service to City Hall might make sense all day from places in Fitchburg, but if we've got a ton of extra bus service in Fitchburg and you can't use it to get to employment centers like University Hospital where the 65 ends up, that kind of, in my mind, limits the hour expansion's usefulness a little bit.
And for things like the night market and other events downtown.
Yes. The same thing with the 75, except for instead of talking about Madison, we'd be talking about Verona. So the 75 is kind of the epic route. So Verona is looking at expanding that, and I think it would be wise to sync what we do with what Verona is already looking at doing.
To that point, it would be very valuable to have a 65 that was running off peak that would connect with the B route on Park Street or Hughes Place. And so it could go all the way to University Hospital at commuter hours. But if we were to run our own service, it could connect to the all day, every 15 minutes B route at South Park and Hughes Place and still be a valuable addition to service.
Also, if the 65 extends north to McKee and the B comes down to McKee, then you can take it from, say, Terabessa west and north, and then take the B north.
Okay, so
that doesn't go directly to like the University Hospital, but
yeah, we want to. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Extra connectivity into downtown.
Okay, you would make both connections. I initially thought that you were talking about, well, if we run a B only in Fitchburg, we would connect to run the 65 only in Fitchburg. We could connect to the B route at Brendan or Trevorton Pike only, but we would still want to connect to Terravessa, and that would take us almost up to South Park Street.
Well, the 65 already goes to Terravessa.
Right. So, and we would want it to continue to go all the way to Terravessa, so it might as well go a little bit farther and connect to South Park Street at the B.
This is just a change to the hours of operation of an existing route, right?
Yes, except that we don't own this route in Madison.
Right.
So we would it'd have to have some kind of reasonable termination if we were running it, but in Fitchburg in off-peak hours, but Madison was not running it in their city.
Oh, I see. But your point was to coordinate.
That's for a
with-
discussion for another day. We'll have to cross that bridge
Yeah.
when we get to it.
Yeah. The other thing I want to bring up here is the cost of these. These are things that we have explored with Metro Transit before. So this is a combo of both of these extensions, or expansions I'm calling them. So if these run until midnight, it is approximately an extra $227,000 a year operationally. So that's for 5,500 hours. Those are estimates. You know, the cost of driver hours may go up by the time we implement these, so take it with a grain of salt. If we go until 8 p.m., then this would be $177,000 per year. We dropped the hours count by about 1,200, just losing those 4 hours of later night operation.
Does that impact paratransit, like whether it qualifies as an all-day versus a commuter route?
So I don't believe so. That is something I would triple check with Metro.
If I can jump in here, yeah, it definitely makes a difference. Paratransit is tied to all-day service. It does not come with peak-only service.
Yeah, but the point is that if you have all-day service that ends at 8 o'clock, I think you're eligible for paratransit to 8 o'clock.
Until 8 o'clock.
And if you have all-day service to midnight, you might be eligible for paratransit to service, but I don't know if paratransit runs that late. And the need for paratransit between 8 p.m. and midnight is arguably less. I was going to say that with respect to the implementation year, this is clearly going to be up to the council and how they allocate any extra revenue from the wheel tax. But this was in the referendum that failed, and I think we should put it in for 2026 budget.
My question to piggyback on that is Verona kind of tying our hands here? If they say we want this, this service expansion, and we say it's not our priority, we would rather focus on, extending the B, for example. If that happens, does the 75 just drive through its current route, McKee and up Fish Hatch without stopping because we aren't paying for it, or?
Well, we don't currently pay for the 75, I don't think at all, right?
We pay for
just
the service in Fitchburg.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, because I mean, if that might change some of the other dates if Verona pushes us through, and again, it would make little sense to me to have it drive through and not make any stops if we didn't.
I believe Verona's already doing this.
Okay.
For midnight or 8 p.m.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the hours, but
When you say doing this, you mean it's happening, or like they've approved it, so it will start happening?
I believe they have approved it. So I'm not sure of what stage it's in.
I thought we would be more concerned about wanting all-day service when Verona doesn't. But are you saying that Verona is maybe already approving all-day service and we just need to get the doors open?
I believe so. I'm not sure of where the route runs.
Yeah, that would be a good thing to find out for our next meeting.
But those dollar amounts is for both the 65 and the 75 expansion together?
We were looking at that as a combo.
And it's 7 days a week. Those numbers are 7 days.
Correct.
But they don't go to midnight on weekends, right?
On Sunday.
Okay. Earlier ending on Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like you have everything you need?
Yeah. Sounds like you guys want more bus service.
They want it within a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about affording it.
The only reason we've given up on 2025 is we don't think we can get 2/3 majority to change the budget.
It's just
Yeah.
about the money.
So
It's
feel
the money
free-
issue.
Feel free to share any other route updates. Maybe, and we can talk about them as we go through this. And I will say, all of these route, I just want to throw this caveat out there. All of these route deviations go a little bit against some of the principles of the network redesign, which was for faster access to places was a part of that. So if the bus is, going off on these other streets and giving more service, that delays
more coverage.
That delays the timing of the bus routes, and it takes longer to get places on the bus.
During the service redesign, there was a fixed pie, and we were asked if we wanted more ridership or more coverage. Is that right, Mike? And my argument in those days was that that's a false choice. We need to invest more in transit, and we need both more ridership and more coverage. And I think that it does depend on the willingness of the council to pay for it and the citizens to support that. But I think that going for more coverage, especially when we're going into areas that have all this ridership potential, makes a lot of sense. And we're not stealing from Peter to pay Paul, we're just paying them both more. So.
I think it does have to be a discussion with Metro though, because it has to work for the schedule.
It has to work operationally.
It has to be, yeah, and I think that's the key is this is like ideal world you would do this, but it might not functionally work once you look at that work as a whole. But
with cars, we don't question the need for local streets and for expressways. But for transit, everybody says, oh, we can't have local service and express service on the same route. That would be too expensive. But we do it all the time with cars, and in Europe they even do it for trains. So it's something that, I'm not saying we should double up the routes, but getting more ridership and more coverage by spending more money, I think, is a reasonable approach. And I don't think it really violates the principles you were talking about, Ross.
well, I think the ridership coverage issue is that everyone wants more frequent bus service, but they never think about the route no longer being in front of their house. Everyone would think about, oh, that's still in front of my house, I'm closer. I think that's like, until you see a map, it's hard to envision the impact of less coverage. And that's the crux of the issue with that, anyway.
Yeah, and I think just to go back to your point about this is kind of a perfect world plan, the city has a lot of other plans that we make a lot of goals, and yeah, things cost money, things are difficult to do in the real world, so you know, if this plan is approved, staff will get into the weeds on all this stuff and try to make it happen, and some of it may not be able to, but we'll try to work through it.
But I appreciate that all this discussion that we've had is now going to be in a city document, so that it can be discussed and it's not just in these conversations. So this is great. Thank you.
So what I'm hearing, Ross, is we're not getting all of this by 2026. Is it helpful to you or the city council to have us say which one of these we think should be priority? I mean, if it turns out they're all sort of
yes, that is very helpful.
cost.
That is very helpful. So, I guess thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would extend the 65 and the B to Trevorton Pike so that they meet, even if we can't extend the hours.
Create a mini transfer station.
Okay. So
those would be the first
routes over hours is kind of the.
Well, I think that we're talking about very different numbers. The route extensions are going to be, and the deviation that Logan proposed are going to be relatively cheap compared to all-day, everyday service. So I think that we should prioritize those.
Sounds good.
We need to make an agenda check. Ross might have some insight on this, but Safe Streets for All federal grant program, we have a huge notice of funding opportunity in our packet. The timeline is tight for June. Is a due date for that?
June 26th, yeah.
So what I would propose, if I can get an agenda amendment, is to go to report from staff and ask Ross whether we should even be wasting time talking about Safe Streets for All grant. And then after we have a staff report, we can figure out whether we're going to do 7C and whether we have any critical reports from other bodies to get through, because it's...
I'll move to amend the agenda to do the report from staff now.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, you're on.
So one second, before we go on though, I still have a question about transit plan update. So it's a 20-page document. You had some amendments on, like, just the routing changes. Are we saying that the rest of the document remains unchanged and that's our annual update?
No, we have, it's been yet unrevised.
Okay.
So they're all still in the hopper for future meetings.
So I believe 2 meetings ago, we discussed the schedule for updates to the transit plan, and it breaks it up into chunks that we can talk about for a little bit of time at each meeting. Okay. I thought that was a easier way to do it.
Or a lot of time.
Yeah. So I'll kick it off with the Safe Streets for All. This is my opinion. Well, this part isn't, but June 26th is the 2025 application deadline. May 29th, which is in 3 weeks, is the question deadline for the 2025 Notice of Funding Opportunity. And in my opinion, the reason that we would be looking at applying for this funding is that we don't think we are going to get our Safe Streets for All funding that we have already applied for. If we don't think we are going to get what we've already applied for, why waste time applying for another federal grant with, in my mind, a worse application? Because we would be applying in 2025 only as the city of Fitchburg, where in 2024 we applied as the Madison Metropolitan MPO, which basically includes the whole county.
And if the 2024 funding doesn't come through, why would we assume that 2025 funding would be there?
Exactly. So, and as I know, I always say, but staff time is a hot commodity, and the nice part about the MPO application was that the MPO did it.
They did it.
And the bad part about the Fitchburg application would be I have to.
And federal grant applications are no joke.
Yeah.
I've gone to a number of webinars on this, and they're encouraging folks to apply for this stuff. Whether you have got one in the pipeline that might be on hold, or whether you got one that rejected, or whether you got one that's accepted, they're saying apply for it. I recognize that we have a chance of getting some funding and that staff is stretched thin. So if it's your advice that we not worry about the June deadline, then we can, as a commission, decide that that's what we want to do. I mean, we can't make you do things, but we can say, don't bother. So other discussion.
We're not on that agenda.
Oh, we're not on that agenda.
Sorry.
Well, we'll save some time for that then. Rest of your report.
Yeah, so finally, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the Badger State Trail and Lacey near the roundabout are working. MG&E finally installed those.
And the street lights too.
And the street lights too. Steve, I just know you care more about the RFBs. That's why I highlighted
No, I care about all modes.
Cyan Road, again, as you guys probably know, fully closed. Please respect the road closure. Paths and sidewalks along there are also closed. You can sign up for my weekly email updates. The sidewalk replacement and street resurfacing projects are getting started, so we'll start tearing up more roads and sidewalks to improve our existing network. Vision Zero is going to Common Council on May 13th. It went to Board of Public Works and Bike and Ped Commission. There were no real major amendments at either of those, so it went through with the amendments from this commission will be what council sees. And then the neighborhood plans, so Greenfield neighborhood plan, for those that might not know, that's in the area of Cyan Road and Irish Lane. It's also got an existing neighborhood inside of it. And then South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plan, that's the southeast corner of Lacey and Fitchrona. So those will be presented to Plan Commission on June 17th. And then Brad Sipple, who runs those plans, is asking that if people on commissions and committees have comments, that they be turned into the staff contact for that commission. So for you guys, that would be me. His deadline for me to get the comments to him is July 10th. So I'm saying your deadline to get comments to me is July 3rd, which is a week before. Those plans are available on the city website. They're pretty big documents. They've got a lot of stuff in them and a whole chapter devoted to public works and transportation. So take a look at those if you would like. Yeah. Bike and Ped Plan, May 20th, is the deadline for staff review on the Bike and Ped Plan, and I believe Bike and Ped Commission will see that at their June meeting. But just caveat, Phil Groupie, who's a staff contact for Bike and Ped, is on paternity leave, so that schedule may get pushed when he gets back. So
could you repeat that date?
So that's just for staff review. My comments are due to MSA by
Okay, so
May
this hasn't
20th.
been released to commissions and committees.
The
and
draft,
public yet?
the draft with all the staff comments incorporated will be at the June Bike and Ped meeting. That's tentative right now. And then just kind of a small thing, but today a bunch of public works and elected officials went to Forest Edge School in Terravessa. We did basically a crosswalk painting exercise for Mr. Orlowski's 4th grade class for their civic engagement unit. So they presented a bunch of stuff about how they engage with their community and changes they'd like to see, and we made one of those happen near the Terravessa neighborhood playground. So there's nice new crosswalks there.
That's so cute.
Love it.
So yeah, that's my staff report.
Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Anybody?
Great work.
Thank you. Let's go back to 7C and see if we can put this to bed. I am hearing that this is probably not the best use of our time to try to push something else through for SS4A. So if there's a motion to say we're not going to, that would be a way to go forward.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Do we have an idea how much of a grant we'd be applying for if we were to go forward, like ballpark?
I would apply for the same amount that we applied for in the MPO grant, which would be, it's a $300,000 total amount for our report, and it's a 80% federal, 20% local split, so $240,000.
Okay.
So there's planning grants that can include demonstrations like tactical urbanism, like the temporary roundabout up at Coho Street. And then there's implementation grants. Those are the $5 to $15 million side. But you have to complete your planning grant before you're eligible for an implementation grant. So these would be for implementation. These would be for planning.
Yes.
We don't have a approved planning, an executed planning grant that we can proceed with implementation on this grant program.
I agree that I don't think it's probably worth the time, but I would prefer just to make a motion to let, I mean, not necessarily vote, but just let Russ make the best decision for himself.
Do we need a motion?
Well, I don't think we do. We can all nod, but I think that I continually get email about webinars and, Rails to Trails and Vision Zero and all of these national organizations are saying, go, go, go. And, if we're not going to go, then I don't want to go to attend those webinars and do all that reading and stuff. So
No,
that's.
I don't think would be a great use of time.
And I assume they, in part, want to show a demand for the programs,
That
which I
is
support, but probably
a key thing is
not
that they want
worth
to.
Ross's time to do that.
Yep. All right.
And just to clarify, the MPO grant was not awarded.
The MPO grant is still technically in the pipeline. We have not been denied that grant.
That's what I was thinking, that it.
But we also do not have the money from the grant either.
And you think we're likely to not get it, correct?
I think that we should have already seen the money from it, and it is concerning that we have not.
There's a lot of these grants that are on hold for review for conformity to the administration's priorities. And so if you have bike-only grants or equity grants, these things are severely at risk. If you have grants that are multimodal and do include safety, then they're more likely. And I think that ours is not really that dangerous. We did have criteria in there for areas of consistent poverty, And that's, according to the current NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity, that's still okay to address areas of persistent poverty. So it still could come through, and it could be that it's just being held because of this big backlog of things that they're looking for the forbidden words.
How different would the application for this new grant be to the one that has already been completed?
It would only include Fitchburg, not the rest of the municipalities. Honestly, the rest of the application, I would probably do a scan for those, dirty words that the federal government has designated. Even though I think, personally, I feel that those are still important. Just want to throw that out there. Yeah, so not that different.
And total number of hours that it would take you to successfully submit this?
I would give myself probably 20-ish hours. I've never applied for this grant before. I'd try to use anything from our previous application that I could, but I don't have any experience with this grant.
Got it, okay.
All right. So we leave that topic, or do you have enough for us?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. We are running late, but we could entertain reports from Council, Bike and Ped, and Plan Commission, particularly not everything you did, but just transportation.
High level.
Is Bike and Ped first?
Council's
first.
Logan's first one.
All right, I can make it very quick. We last met April 22nd, approved several resolutions about purchasing pedestrian lights for Phase 1 in Terabessa, plat of 4th edition to Terabessa, say that 5 times fast. Change order number 3 for 2024 street resurfacing, same for, I think I copy pasted that twice. Preliminary assessment resolution for 2025 sidewalk replacement. Otherwise, Alder Bill Jetzer, who used to be the council representative to TTC, was just appointed to the Greater Madison MPO Policy Board, had his first meeting yesterday. Will be representing Fitchburg and advocating for us in other cities and villages that are not Madison on that board. Otherwise, we meet again on May 13th, and that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Moving on to Bike and Ped. So they passed Vision Zero, R6925, or approved it, I guess is the appropriate word. I gave them a couple of updates on public works projects, both current and CIP related. Alder Maldonado gave a debrief on they did a walk around Dunn's Marsh walk to assess how walkable that area was, and it was pretty walkable, but the boardwalk is slippery.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Plan Commission met on April 15th. We did a ton of architectural design reviews, or EDRs. We did one for the police facility that's on Lacey and Fitchhatch. We did an ADR for the Edgewood College athletic fields. They're looking to move forward with that project. That is on the corner of Seminole and Lacey, across from the solar panels. And it's a significant facility with a track and field, baseball, softball, throwing fields, and then also they're gonna restore wetland along Seminole Highway. So that obviously has some traffic concerns, but they are working through those. What else is relevant? Yeah, we did a ADR for Hartung Fields, a multifamily apartment building on Botanical Drive. That's right where that deviation would be if we did on the 65. It's 5 stories, 210 units. And I asked about construction. They said they were originally planning for September, breaking ground September, but with the tariffs, there is a lot of uncertainty about that, which is unsurprising. And then, that's all.
Thank you. Are there any items that folks would like to tee up for future agendas that are not on our list? We have Vision Zero. We will have the public transit plan. Anything the council sends us? Anything else that folks think we need to talk about?
Will we still get at TTC the Vision Zero if it goes before council on the 13th next week?
I think that we've already had it and that there have been no amendments, so we don't need to look at it again.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if there's like substantive council amendments, we'd talk about it. But if council approves it with amendments, then it's approved with amendments.
Yeah, and if not, then we'd probably re-refer or send it back.
No.
Just kill it.
They can vote it down. They can change it at the last minute and not give us another say. That would.
Re-referring to to committees is pretty rare.
Okay.
I would say.
We trust you to carry what we would think
For
forward.
4 members of the
as our-
TTC are on the
Yes.
council.
Yes. Not exactly concerned, yes.
Not every commission has 2 members and 2 alumni on the council.
Yes.
I would say, Ross, that if our workload permits, and you're the best judge of that we should talk about complete streets and we should talk about a Vision Zero implementation plan. That's waiting, I guess, for our regional safety plan, safety action plan. Okay,
It'd be interesting just to talk about the transportation aspects of the sustainability plan.
Yeah, well, those are the 2 items I picked out but if there are more, definitely.
Yeah.
Because, I really feel it's our role to take on some of these things, research them, and give the council something to act on because they're very busy and we're the specialists. Seeing anything else, we have our next meeting on June 12th. And are there any other announcements? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And I thank Mike for coming to visit us and
Thanks, Mike.
coming
Yeah,
in.
thank you.